I will start by saying I was listening to Will Henderson speaking, and all the performances that I've seen when it was his 11th Hour company and now this new one, which I'm very excited about, Cavalcade, have all been excellent, fascinating, beautifully directed and performed, and stylish in a way that for some people will be a new experience. So and as he said, he did classics in a different way, previously, but great company of people in this particular version, and it does sound amazing. So I think if it was not clear to you what type of show it was, go and look at it, because I can assure you it's got a great cast and wonderful director and developer. So I'd recommend that. And when I get to see it, which won't be on the opening night because it clashes with, I think it's Once the Musical that opens the same night. It's a busy week next week and the week after, but I will get to see it. Perhaps I may not be able to talk about it before it finishes, but I'm telling you now, go. But I'll start with the Macbeth, or the Scottish play. I always say the Scottish play just in case I'm in a theatre, because we're superstitious about that stuff. It's Bell Shakespeare doing William Shakespeare's Macbeth at the Fairfax studio, and it opened last night. It's touring, so it's a small production. It's not one of the big productions that goes into the Playhouse. It's in the Fairfax, so it's a very sparse set, huge velour green curtains across the back, and just chairs, a few chairs, and lighting and atmospheric music. So I'll just, for those who don't know a lot about Macbeth, I'll do a little quick whip round. It's written with vivid, and I'd call it muscular, poetic language that is replete with grotesque and bloody imagery. Lots of blood, lots of quotes, famous quotes about blood, dudgeon gouts of blood, and I am stepped in blood so far, yes, out damn spot, etc. Supernatural beings, which is namely portents, hallucinations, and serious psychological disorders, particularly in last night's interpretation of it. Macbeth's quite bonkers by the end, not just a tyrant and a megalomaniac. Peter Evans is the director, and this production goes part of the way, I'd say, to bringing this grim, ominous play to the stage. So there are some really interesting moments. Not all are successful, but it is interesting to watch, and it's a different take on it. Hazem Shamas plays Macbeth, who is a general in King Duncan's army, Scottish army, Army of Scotland, returns to the court with his friend and fellow general Banquo, played by Julia Billington. So there's some cross-casting, also double casting. They play multiple roles, a lot of them. He's going to be, or is hailed as a hero in a battle with Norway up in the north. He's waylaid on the way home by the three weird sisters, the witches, who spookily prophesy that Macbeth will be given a new title, that's Thane of Cawdor, and hereafter he will become king. So that sets in motion, when he lets his wife know by letter and Duncan comes to visit his home, sets in motion his plot with his wife to get rid of the king, which of course means murder, regicide, bloody murder. Becomes an obsession, and Jessica Tovey plays Lady Macbeth. The bloody business begets more blood and murder and madness as Macbeth, he has all the impediments and all the potential heirs removed from his path until he descends into just mania and mayhem. So it includes some atmospheric moments, beautiful lighting and sound, powerful interpretations of some of the soliloquies I'll talk about. It's beautiful evocative lighting and music, but it's peppered with some less successful scenes, which is a pity, that don't do justice to Shakespeare's text, and there are highlights, but I'd have to say the acting is uneven. There are some people who just haven't penetrated the text and vocally are not strong enough to carry the Shakespeare, from my perspective. It's I've got a bit of a thing about the vocal quality of people on stage, and it's very important with something that's such complex text and requires interpretation. It's promising. The opening scenes, the battlefield is extraordinary. They're in First World War greatcoats and other sort of First World War period costumes underneath, men's clothing, women's gowns, which is very beautiful. Anna Treglowan is the set designer. I have to check who's the costume. She may be both. It's The first witches scene, unfortunately, breaks the spell. And literally the spell. They've done this incantation, but it just doesn't quite give us that portentous quality that makes those poetic incantations feel supernatural. It's just a bit banal, which is a pity because that's important. It's the reason he goes chasing after the king and kills people or has them killed. He kills only the servants, but has other people kill the rest. So Shammas's portrayal of Macbeth is, I'd call it audacious and novel, with an edge of the demented clown, which is odd because you wouldn't think of Shakespeare as a comedy. He does. Have you figured out who's the set to costume designer?
Anna Triglowen.
She's set and costume, yeah, and both are really very lovely. Well, the set is very simple, but the costumes are lovely. This Macbeth, Shammas, doesn't arrive on stage looking like a bold, courageous, battle-scarred general, but just an ordinary man. But he rapidly escalates into bloodthirsty megalomania and tyranny and delusions that I would say defy psychiatric diagnosis, although there's probably someone out there who's got an idea what it is. He's a clown, king, soldier, murderer, maniac, and it reaches a climax after the interval, and I think that's where the production is at its strongest, in the second half. The last couple of acts, or 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, he brings a new interpretation to this famous Macbeth monologue, including Tomorrow, Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is one of the most famous, but others as well. So he's cowering, sort of, crumpled in corners and having visions and hurling himself around the stage in a way I've not seen before. Less stately than Macbeths often are. The relationship with his wife is passionate, really physically, sexually sort of charged and obsessional, which is he's driven by this woman behind the man, I imagine. And she controls him by shaming him into keeping his promise, which is part of the script. Tovey's strongest scene is that fraught, hand-wringing, sleepwalking monologue out damn spot. I'll mention one other person I loved. I can't remember his first name, Lugden. I've got him here in my program. He's imposing and dignified as King Duncan, then riotously funny as the Porter, which is a comic character. James Lugden, thank you, is menacing as one of the murderers, and he's wonderful with the text. So I'd get out and see that. And it runs, as I know your next question will be.
Yes.
Until the 14th of May.
Beautiful.
Keep asking questions and keep me on track.
Yes.
And the next one is Selling Kabul, which is at Red Stitch. It's by Sylvia Koury. It's an American play written about Kabul and the... so I'm just checking my time. It's set in a tiny apartment, a really claustrophobic apartment. But if you, in Kabul, just at the end of the occupation as the Americans have left. So just imagine your life and the lives of all those you love are in danger, and there's little or no hope of escape to a place of safety, and you might get an inkling of the predicament of these people. Tarun is he's played by Chris Raw Jones Shakur, a former translator for the US Army in Afghanistan. He's been hiding for 4 months in his sister Afia's tiny apartment. She's Nicole Nabu, played by Nicole Kabul. He's awaiting his promised visa. He's closeted there. His wife's given birth. He's desperate to get out, but the Taliban are after him, so they have to get him out. Brett Cousins' direction is taut and has an atmosphere of impending doom and suspicion that Tarun has been betrayed. Jones Shakur has this volatility of incarceration fever, and Nicole Nabu is wonderful as the wife. It's an interesting balance there. Relentless sense of menace and rising frenzy. I'll move on to our last one briefly because we've got little amount of time. It's Arterial. Sorry, that runs until the 21st of May, so you've got plenty of time to see Red Stitch's show. Arterial by Djinang Circus is, I'd say, less a contemporary circus and more acro dance and movement in its style and content. It's at Northcote Town Hall till only tomorrow, so I'll say that first up in case you're interested in it. It's only 60 minutes, directed by Harley Mann, the founder. 4 performers of Indigenous heritage committed to accessible cross-cultural physical performance. So Indigenous dance, imagery, sound, movement with hints of snake and water imagery, and the space is ringed by branches of gum leaves. But their performance has less of the high-risk spectacular circus routines that I've seen a lot of, and more of movement, balance, playful, stressed, restrained, gentle, balancing. It's interesting, and they've got heart. I think that's the important thing to say about it, and it's worth a look.
Thanks, Kate. So you have been listening to Arts Weekly. We've had a bit of a problem with our little tags at the end of the shows, Kate, which has been quite interesting. So I'm going to put a little bit of the track underneath as we chat. So thanks for your company. Thanks,
Pleasure.
Kate, for popping in today.